Brewery Königshof Pils.
Life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. The sun's in, but I don't care because I've got beer. And today I've got one that was kindly donated to me by a subscriber. Now, I don't get free beer from anyone, but he's also a mate and he was at my wedding and I got a call from my missus the other day and she said, your mate Mark has left some beers in for you, and this was one of them. This is the Königshof Pils. Now I've tried their alt beer, and to be honest, I didn't think much of it. It wasn't that great, and that sort of stands to reason because even the Königshof Brewery, they class their beer as entry-level beer. Now, whatever that means, I don't know. If that's another word for cheap or just like a throwaway fridge filler, I don't know, but that's what they've called their beer. They even describe their beer as that, an entry-level beer. All their beers, in fact. And they've got an interesting history. They were originally called the Rhinana, or Rhinana, I don't know how to pronounce that, Rhinania, something like that. And it was an alt beer brewery, and they made alt beer. They're from the Rhineland, and they were quite well known for doing that. But that company, that Rhinana, I think it is, Rhinania or something, I don't fucking know, it's something like that, the alt beer brewery, it was sold to Krombacher, and the actual brewery, they were going to dismantle it brick by brick and move it to Algeria. That's what they was going to do. But the owners, or the original owners who got bought out, they really didn't want that to happen. So one of them got a mate to buy the place, and they started brewing this stuff. And that was in 2003. And they've expanded since then. And the reason they've expanded is not so much because of the success of the Königshof stuff, but they do a lot of contract brewing. Have you heard of the German supermarket Netto? You used to get them over here. I don't know whether there's still any left, but I do remember when I lived in Tottenham, on the way to Stamford Hill, you used to have one there, and it was very cheap. It was like Lidl's, but this was in the 90s, or mid-90s, and they had Netto there, and stuff was really cheap in there. I don't think I ever bought any beer from there. I cannot remember. But they brew beer for them. They also brew beer for Baltica as well. Now, of course, Baltica are owned by Carlsberg, and this brewery do a lot of contract brewing for Carlsberg. So it's, you know, you could argue that quality is going to suffer. But, and this is a big but, right? I was just doing a little bit of research on this, and I looked at the label, I thought, oh, it's won an award. What is that award? That is a DLG Gold Award. And that was awarded, as it hasn't got the date, 2019, right? Now, these awards, right? Now, I do take an interest in them, and some of them are quite credible, but others aren't, right? And I'll give you an example. I did a review of the, I think it was it Kestrel Super? Or was it Carlsberg? No, I think it was Kestrel Super. It was Kestrel Super. Now, Kestrel Super is obviously one of them super high strength alcohol beers that are favoured by, let's just say, less fortunate members of our society, and because it's cheap and it's got a very high ABV on it. Anyway, I sort of was quite surprised to see that it won an award, and a subscriber told me that award is a complete load of bollocks. You have to pay to get that, and you pay quite a lot of money, and then you can stick that on, and it looks like the beer's been awarded on the strength of the taste of the beer. It hasn't. You have to pay for that. So now I'm a little bit more sceptical about awards. So I decided to look up this DLG award. And apparently it's quite a prestigious award in Germany. It's the German Agricultural Society Award. Now what they do, they don't compare them to other beers. What they do is you send a batch of beer in on one day, and then a few weeks later you send another batch of beer in, and what they do is they compare. And what they're looking for is consistency, which is, it's fair enough, all right? They break down all the chemical compounds in the beer, they compare them for the amount and the integrity of the ingredients, etc., etc. But in 2019, there was a big controversy, and I don't know whether you've ever heard of the Furstenberg Brewery. I've got one of their beers in the fridge. They're another almost like entry-level type brewery from Germany. They, well, let's just say, they were sneaky. What they did, instead of sending in 2 different batches, what they did is they sent in 2 samples of the same batch, but they changed the date to make it look like it was 2 different samples. And they were outed. And it was a senior technician who outed them, and he got in brackets made redundant, aggressively made redundant, if you know what I mean. But it just goes to show what's going on with some of these less scrupulous breweries. Now, apparently, that's a widespread practice in Germany for these DLG awards. I mean, it's pretty easy to do. You're relying on the integrity of the brewers. Sorry to keep going on. I know you want to hear the review of the beer, but this is important, and this is what you should be taking into consideration when you see beers that have got awards. Always be a little bit sceptical. Now, there are some good ones, the World Beer Awards, etc. Of course, you can't argue with them. They are done, they compare them with other beers, and it's done by judges. It's all above board, as far as I know. And I would have thought that this stuff was as well, but apparently it's not. So if you see a beer with this thing on it, the DLG, and it's a shame really, because the idea behind it is good. If you see a beer with that on it, just be a little bit sceptical, because there are ways of circumventing the process and getting that award by foul means. So just be careful. Anyway, let's forget about awards. Let's forget about all the shenanigans that are going on in the fatherland, and let's investigate this beer. Okay, Brewery Königshof. It's a Pils. They do an out as well, different sizes. This is a 500ml bottle. It's 4.8%. It contains water, malted barley, and hop extract. Hop extract. And it's a pilsner, and that's all it says. To be honest, I haven't got high hopes for this. As I say, they do a lot of contract brewing. They do contract brewing for Carlsberg as well. So you never know. You never know what's going to go on. Anyway, let's stop guessing. Let's get this beer open. Now, they specialise in Alt beer. That's what they were. And I tried their Alt beer, and I really wasn't impressed. So I'm not sure what this is going to be like. And they do other stuff as well. They do Radlers. I think they do a wheat beer as well, etc. Here is the cap. Königshof cap. And I think the autofocus is playing ball today. I've threatened it with landfill. All right, let's get it into the glass. Yeah. Well, I've gone a bit too mad with that one. The size of the head on that. It's huge. As I say, this lot specialise in Alt beer, or did specialise in Alt beer. And very grainy, sweet grains. A little touch of earth on there. It doesn't smell that impressive, to be honest. Its aromas are quite weak. Yeah, it's not filling me with confidence, but let's get the rest of it in the glass. Now, there's quite a bit of a head on that. So you got to excuse me for that. That was my fault. I poured that wrong. The carbonation in there is minimal. Very tiny bubbles. Golden straw. 3-finger head on that. Not, I would imagine that's not normally like that, but it's just the way I've poured it. Let's get it down the hatch. Zum Wohl, as they say in Germany. It tastes mass produced. There is a bit of a biscuit malt finish on the end, doughy biscuit malt, but there's a bit of a nastiness to it. It's like an earthy, sweet grass flavour, if that makes sense. And I'm not sure whether that's something to do with the hop extract. Hop extract does taste slightly different, I think. It's basically an oil, hop extract. It's the oils that are, you know, crushed out of the hops, and they put that in the beer instead of the actual hops. And I think there's a definite difference. Sometimes brewers will combine the two. It cuts down on the price of, you know, just using pure raw hops, if you like. But this has got a bit of a nasty nif to it. And when I say nasty, it just smells like it's mass produced. And in a blindfold test, I would have said this is a macro brewed lager, which effectively you could argue that it is, but mouthfeel isn't bad on the plus side. And if you drank this really cold, I would imagine it would be okay if it was cheap. But to be honest, I would not go out of my way to buy this. It's just really uninspiring. It's, to be fair to it, on the plus side, as I say, the mouthfeel's good. There's a fair bit of bread stroke biscuit malt on the end of it, but I'm just left feeling a bit meh. And I don't know whether it's me, you know, when I've got that Carlsberg seed planted in my head where they're doing contract brewing for them. I don't know, it just puts me off. And there is a bit of a sulphury smell off this too, which again it just puts me off, you know. And it is a fact that aroma has a hell of a lot to do with taste. That is a fact. It's been scientifically proven. And if this has got a bit of a nasty nif on it, I'm sort of going to get that in the flavour. Yeah, it's just nothing special. Could be anything. To be honest, I'd rather have that over a true macro brewed beer like Heineken or Carlin or Carlsberg or something like that. Don't get me wrong, but it's, you know, comparing it to other German beer, this is, as they say, they admit it themselves, it's an entry level beer, and it tastes like that as well. What's the verdict on Königshof Pils? Yeah, just very, very fucking average. An entry level beer, as they say themselves, they admit it. They haven't got high hopes for it. And of course they're competing with a lot of the top breweries in Germany. And yeah, they make no bones about it. That award, you know, doesn't mean anything. effectively the criteria is if you're brewing a shit beer 1 week and then the next batch it's equally as shit, you get an award. Now I don't think that should be given. I suppose it's, you know, it's the integrity and the consistency that they're after, which is fair enough, but for me it's all about taste. If beer tastes good, it tastes good. And that's what it should be awarded on solely, not the chemical compound, the breakdown of the ingredients, etc. It's the sum of everything. But that's just my take. I'm going to give it a very generous 5. And that's all. Sorry, Mark, I know it was free and you give it to me for free, but that ain't great. And I probably will not be buying that again. I won't be buying the alt beer again, I know that. I'll give that a 6 out of 10. And, you know, I think that's the best they're going to do. And they specialise in alt beer. Now, if you specialise in alt beer and you're getting a bare 6 out of 10, then, you know. But they brew for, as I say, they brew for the big brewers. They contract brew. So, you know, there's no real, I don't think, when you're doing that, you can't sell your beer on its own merits, so you have to take that other work on. Now, I know everybody's got to make a few quid. They run in a business, they need to make a profit, and that is a way of doing it. But, you know, I always say if you're brewing good beer, it will sell. That's my philosophy, and that's my sort of thinking, and that ain't that great. So 5 out of 10, I wouldn't recommend it unless you get it really, really cheap. And remember, I'm drinking this shit, so you don't have to.